This episode of Shadiversity is brought to you by the Super Mega Awesome Castle shirt, which presents all the parts of a castle that makes them awesome. Specifically, the towers, keep, donjon, turrets, merlons, crenellations, crenell, ramparts, baileys, matriculations! Murder holes, arrow loops, drawbridge, gatehouse, barbican, and the portcullis. Also available in a poster, available through Teespring, link in the description.
Shadiversity.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and I've spent a decent amount of time seeing if I can make a properly functional castle in the video game Fallout 4. And when I say properly functional, I mean a castle that has all the proper elements that real medieval castles had. You see, Fallout 4 has this wonderful crafting system where you can build your own base. And in any game where it has any type of base building, you can basically have a large measure of assurance that I'm going to find a way to build a pretty cool castle. Or actually, a couple of castles. You see, Fallout 4's crafting system is far from perfect. In fact, there are a lot of limitations with it. And so I've actually struggled and had tried many attempts to make a castle that met my standards. And what you see before you here is my kind of masterpiece. After many trials and errors, I have built this. And this is actually the settlement called Starlight Drive-In. You might not, recognize it. You might not even be able to see the drive-in screen, but it's there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and show you some of my earlier attempts at castle building in Fallout 4. Unfortunately, I don't have my very first ones because I lost the saves thanks to computer crashes and such. I'll also show you the mods that I'm using, because that's the other thing. To be able to make this castle to the level of satisfaction that I wanted, you need to use mods, okay? And so I'll showcase and tell you what mods are being used to be able to make this awesome settlement and castle. And then I'll also give you a close-up tour of this castle and what features I am employing to make it a proper castle. Now, in this video, I'll actually not be reviewing the settlement that is actually called the castle. This video is exclusively about the castles that I have built in the game, and hopefully to inspire you, if you own this game, to try and make some awesome castles in Fallout 4 as well. So I might do a video review of the castle settlement of Fallout 4, but it won't be in this one. And I will just say, for those of you who are wondering, because you have requested me to kind of take a look at other games where you can build castles in, specifically some more castle-oriented ones, like Medieval Engineers. And yes, absolutely, guys, I will be doing a full review of Medieval Engineers. It's interesting. I hold Medieval Engineers to a higher standard than what you're capable of doing in Fallout 4 here, because that game is promoted as a proper castle building simulation. And so anyway, I'll tell you my thoughts in that review. And of course, I will be looking at the castles in Mount and Blade, as many people requested. And guys, I love Mount and Blade. I've played that since its first iteration. But that is then, and this is now. We're into Fallout 4 here. So let us get into it. And I will take us to one of my earlier attempts of castle construction design and such. And so this one is very basic. There's actually not many castle elements here, which is why I'm a bit more reluctant to call this a castle, and it's not a successful attempt at making a castle. It's just more of a military base with a big solid wall around it and a nice, watchtower with some areas for people to stand and stay on guard. So a couple of elements that helps this, base fall short of true castle status is that the walls are not thick enough. And that's one of my main issues and difficulties I've had in trying to make a proper castle in Fallout 4. The walls. This is a concrete wall around it. Now, the bottom layer wall is pretty good. Okay, that's about, 3 to 4 meters thick. So definitely thick enough. And we'll go in and have a closer look. So here, bottom wall. So definitely thick enough, right? And I could have made the whole wall that thick, but then it was a bit tricky for the ramparts and battlements and other things. And also, because I was more going for a military base, I love the look of these walls, so I decided to use them. Because of that, it does fall short of proper castle status because those walls aren't thick enough. But it does give what I was kind of going for, which is like a military castle base, but it's not really a castle. I couldn't give it that status. The concrete walls would stop bullets, because this is the issue. Concrete is pretty good, but in stopping missiles and stuff like that, because there are some pretty destructive things. Now, of course, when you get to the big boy weapons, the small mini nukes, even, standard castle wall thickness probably wouldn't do the job, but it would help, okay? And of course, there's no destructible environments in Fallout 4, so I know it doesn't really matter in terms of the gameplay, but it's for the aesthetics, okay? It's for my ability to say it's a proper castle. The other part that I just simply was unable to incorporate into this castle was one of the best and most defensive elements of castle battlements, and you know what they are? Proper machicolations. This was another simple attempt, and what I was really trying to get to work with this was the tower part. And so what you'll notice here, the tower footprint is a 6 square footprint, where previously I was trying to work with 2. And the advantage of having a 6 square footprint was that I could fit an internal staircase all the way up. And so that it has proper nav mesh, so NPCs can go in. And I was also incorporating a new mod. This build set that you see here is from the Thematic and Practical mod, available on the Nexus. And it has this awesome Brotherhood of Steel kind of build set that you can make those really cool military kind of buildings. Problems with it? Again, wall thickness, and I've had so much trouble trying to fit in those proper machicolations. So, new character and new attempt. This character, he is very much lore-friendly to the Fallout kind of universe, a scavenger, looks kind of Raider-like, and so I was very much trying to make a castle that was lore-friendly. And I'm actually very happy with this one. One of the things that I really like is the wall that I put around it. It's made out of, kind of trash storage containers with buildings made out of old tin and iron and other pieces like that. The external wall surrounds a big, beautiful central keep. And with this one, I decided to try and incorporate some of the other elements, specifically the other buildings, like the drive-in screen and also the kind of booth on the other end. You'll see there's a bridge leading from the main keep to the top of the drive-in screen. And of course, I was using a very healthy amount of the Build Everywhere mod, because to get all these elements, building components fitting together, there was a lot of clipping, and you just would never have been able to place them. It wouldn't have allowed you. Some of the drawbacks for this castle is not so much the actual wall thickness now, because I was using it out of, larger blocks, and you see these shipping containers here. They actually provide a decent level of thickness, and then I built a rampart atop all the kind of scrap elements that comprise the wall, but there are no Crenellations or Merlons, so nothing is giving the people atop the wall full cover. And on top of not having a proper battlement, there are still no proper machicolations. It's really just a wall with a walkway atop of it. The next part is that the kind of tin sheeting that you use for the building materials, I do not believe these would stop a bullet. Look, they're rusting, they got holes in it, and I did build the entire keep out of that element. And, I was thinking, well, maybe you could do several layers, and in-game, of course, it stops bullets, but in real life it wouldn't, and it just didn't have the right, feel to it. So, though, yes, it's a bit, of a keep, a bit of a castle, functionally, if this was built in real life, it wouldn't really be able to fulfill the purpose of a castle, because it doesn't really give enough protection. Even these kind of gun window holes that I've made here don't give enough cover or protection. There's also no proper gatehouses. I mean, there are some small barricades just above the gate, but not a proper gatehouse, so the entry points don't have enough defenses or protections. I mean, yes, there's guns and stuff, but not enough defenses. You wouldn't call it an actual gatehouse. Still, for the aesthetic and style I was going for this character, fits very well within the Fallout 4 lore, so I still do love this castle. Switching characters again, this guy was really built around the character template that Fallout 4 gives you for the male character, which is, you know, ex-military kind of veteran, and so I decided to take that theme and just go with it. And so with some really cool armor mods here that you see, and also check out that handheld minigun. So cool. Check out this gun. This gun's so beastie. Can I kill the car? Yeah! This gun is a mod, right? And it is better than any additional gun you get in the DLCs. It's just phenomenal. And with this character, I wanted to make a really good castle. So it's not perfect, but it's a much better attempt than my previous ones. And so let's go and have a look at this baby here. As you see, I was using the concrete build set, because at this point, I felt the concrete build set was really one of the best kind of build sets you could do to build a structure that was very castle-like in terms of its wall strength. The walls were not hugely thick, not as thick as you would on real castle, but still, I mean, they're big concrete slabs. They'll certainly stop bullets, and they might, you know, stop a rocket, like from a bazooka, but there are some really cool elements to this castle, as I will show you. You'll notice the big tower off to the side here. It is a 6 square footprint tower, so I can get that internal staircase. I had still not figured out how to solve that problem of getting an internal staircase into a 4 square footprint tower. There was a couple of different designs I managed to do, but they required having the walk around to the next stairwell part kind of sticking out on the edges, so it wasn't working perfectly. And I'll just show you what those variant designs are. This is the keep of the same character's settlement in Sanctuary Hills, and so what I've done to fit in a internal staircase into a 4 square footprint for this tower here is that the walk around to the next stairwell up actually sticks outside of the tower a little bit, as you see here. See how it's just sticking out of the tower? Then you walk around, and then go up to the next stairwell, and then same thing all the way up to the top. And so it's not a bad design. I mean, it certainly gets the look, and you get a nice kind of lookout tower right at the top. And this tower in profile still looks pretty cool. Now, you might be wondering what's actually holding up the internal tower, the most central part, because if you know anything about me, if you've seen any of my videos, you know this is a tiered design, and so this internal tower should not be floating on nothing. So if we go and have a look inside, of course there are support pillars holding up the corners of that tower. Okay, back to the larger castle. Now you'll notice there is no wall around this castle because not every castle required a wall around it, and it's an incorrect notion to think that if a castle doesn't have a wall around it, it's not a castle. No, there are many castles historically identified, like they're castles that existed in the period of around the medieval period that were called castles that didn't have external walls. Case in point, Pajama Castle of south-central Slovenia, built into the side of a mountain and no external wall at all. And so in the case of a castle that doesn't have an external wall, you wouldn't just call it a keep, because you only identify the main habitable structure as a keep, separate to the other parts of the castle and ramparts and walls and such. And so when there's no walls, you don't need to call it a keep, you just call it a castle, and that's fine. Some of the internal design elements are worth a proper tour, so let's go inside and have a look. Now, first of all, you'll notice that there are no proper crenellations, so these people here don't have full cover. They can duck behind these steel kind of sheets, and I feel these steel barriers would be able to stop bullets, so they're sufficient, but they don't have any Merlon, so that's a bit of a missed opportunity, and one of the reasons why I was having trouble figuring out how to incorporate them, even though there was a simple fix that I later realized. But, so you have these kind of stand posts here that people can shoot down at anyone trying to get in. And there's only one entrance to this castle. Everything else is solid brick wall. So unless you climb up into those platforms there, which will put you, at a risk, you got to try and get through this steel door here. And so once you get here, you enter this entry hall. Now what you'll notice here, this entry hall here, a complete kill zone. I built the whole area to be a false entrance kind of, so as soon as you get here you got to deal with this massive door, and see here, these big concrete slabs giving cover to all the people up on this upper walkway, and they can just lean out from around the corner, shoot down and kill anyone who's in this zone here. So an effective part of the zone. Then when you get to this door, you come to the castle proper, the main kind of part of the castle. And so this is the communal area, and I'll put in some extra tables here for people to hang around. There's an upper kind of mezzanine walkway there. And what we have here is the door to the storage room. This is where all the supplies will be kept. And so there's a general store window sticking out right here, which leads through to where everything will be kept on the inside. And so I'll be putting all, valuable scrap and food supplies and everything. That's all going to be behind here. So now let's go up to the upper floors, because there's still some more elements to this castle's design. So this is the upper walkway Killzone area, which it works well in my opinion. And you can only get access to this area past the main entrances. Then we go to the upper level here. Access to the walkway, which is staring down there, and then we have entrance to the internal stairwell for the upper side tower. Going around here, this is the armory. So you enter here, and this is where all the weapons are kept. So for all the defenders of the castle, they can come here, grab their weapons, then go to the rest of the castle. And this is my room. This is the guy's room. You'll notice that this place isn't fully furnished. I didn't get up to this point with this character before I kind of wanted to try something different. So all in all, very, very happy with this castle. I got to incorporate some distinct proper castle defenses in its design. But again, it's not perfect. We are missing proper battlements, and we are missing proper machiculations. Also, some of the external balconies where the soldiers can stand and shoot down, honestly, the bottom ones are too close to ground level, too easy for someone to bring a ladder and sneak up. Now, the reason why I actually put them there was an in-game mechanical reason rather than a proper castle defensive reason. And that is because I noticed that the turrets, and I built these to put turrets all on them, these gun turrets, register enemies when they're closer to the ground. If I put them up right up here, which in real life would be far better and more defensible, in-game they actually don't register the enemies nearly as much because they're so much further away from the ground. There you go. This is one of the better castles, so making progress, but not there yet. So, new character, new attempts at building castles. Now, with this character though, I started a whole new game purely to explore one of the greatest and most impressive mods that has ever come to Fallout 4. And the mod's name is Sim Settlements. Oh my goodness, this mod is just amazing. And so I started this character to just build new settlements, and incredible. So this settlement here isn't necessarily a castle, but more a fortified community to see what I can do with sim settlements. But what I was happy with is trying to make a wall that was very much Fallout 4 lore friendly here in one of the main settlement locations, Sanctuary Hills. There are some good castle-like elements, though, that I will be able to show you, and that is an external kind of secondary gatehouse. So you have to cross the... Now, this bridge is awesome. What a defensive element here. And no, that is not the native bridge in the game. That's a mod to get the bridge to be much cooler than what it originally was. And it also means that you can fortify it and make it far more defensible because it's easier to work with in terms of building structures. So what we have here is proper kind of barricaded gun holes on the upper part of the gatehouse. So if we have a look through here, you see some proper barricades to protect you, and this is also thick steel, so I think that's perfectly adequate to stop bullets. Wouldn't stop, you know, rockets, missiles and stuff like that, but I think it is a functional enough gatehouse with some good strong, you know, gun turrets right here. A nice cool gun turret from another mod. Check out that beast. And so for those people who want to approach this settlement from the bridge, it is suicide. Of course, they can go around it, which is the fallback. So what should really happen, there should be a wall coming out from this main settlement here, which would then go around the side and connect to the gatehouse, because if you have just a gatehouse sitting there and they can just go around it, it's obviously pointless. So I just haven't gotten around to building that wall in yet, but that is of course what needs to be done to make that gatehouse far more effective than what it currently is, because then they would be funneled into a set path and they'd have to approach this second gatehouse here. And so the gatehouse doesn't have, you know, some of the best elements of what historical gatehouses had, and so there's no murder holes, and of course there are no machiculations. So going into the settlement here, just have a look at these buildings. Sim Settlements is one of the most amazing mods I have ever seen, where you can just place plots and then your settlers move into them, build their own homes, and they are automatically furnished. So see all this, you know, furniture on the inside and the clutter and stuff. Originally, you'd have to place every one of those items individually, which, if you notice in my previous settlements, they seem very bare. You will literally notice they're very bare, and they don't seem lived in, because to actually make an individual home for all the settlements will take ages. Well, Sim Settlement solves that, and it's brilliant. And yes, there's a central treehouse here, which I've not got around to furnishes, but that's my home. Okay, so that's the character's home there, which is a cool treehouse right in the middle of Sanctuary Hills, with the settlement's resident homes all around it. And they get upgraded as people, as you improve the settlement. The settlers upgrade them, and look, they're just hanging around inside their home, doing their own thing. One of the coolest mods ever. Probably one of the best mods. That with the Build Everywhere mod. Link in the description, of course. And so having a look at the wall is made out of junk to be lore-friendly to the Fallout 4 universe, which is brilliant. So I speckled it all. It's all kind of just lumped together. Some a bit more structure to it than others. Some built out of cars and things. All to make a very lore-friendly wall around the settlement. And this is definitely one of my best settlements I've ever made, and it's in large measure thanks to the Sim Settlements mod. And then, of course, get out of the way, tree. Then, of course, I make a cool, you know, effective wall going around it as well. And so one of the elements that I really like about the settlement is that when you come in here at, in, you know, the entrance, you come to the commercial area. Right here on either side, you are met with shops selling their wares. So you've got, so that's armor. You got an armor shop, clothing shop. Sitting around, you got a weapons shop there, supply shop, and hospital. So good. This is definitely one of my favorite settlements that I've built so far in the game. Not completed yet, because we're missing a wall for the most external gatehouse. But in terms of how alive it feels and how full it is, just awesome. I love it. So at this point, I had played Fallout 4 for quite a while, and yet I had still not built a castle that met all my criteria for me to consider it a proper fortified castle. And so I decided, all right, let me see if I can really make a proper castle. And so I started making this one. You'll notice it is not finished, but I was starting to incorporate, I was thinking outside of the box, trying to figure out how can I make a proper castle. And this one has started off quite well. You'll see that big kind of concrete square there. That's the footprint for the keep that would go there. And what I was doing is like, this castle, I want to make a real castle in Fallout 4. So you'll notice that I'm making it completely out of concrete blocks to make the walls proper thickness. And you'll notice that I also started thinking really outside the box to try and figure out how to make a proper, proper towers, but also proper machiculations. The thing is, though, they're awkward. They're too big. It'd be too easy for attackers to fire up at the defenders on these, towers. And the building blocks that I was using to make the Merlons, you can see that they're actually see-through from the bottom, and so they just weren't really working. I wasn't achieving what I was really going for, but I think I did make some good design elements in how to arrange the towers to get the towers pretty thick, but also kind of I was trying to make arrow loops here. So this would be the cavity leading to the arrow loop. And the way that I built the arrow loops was trying to use pillars, again, the Build Everywhere mod, and placing the pillars on an angle and then putting a concrete block on the bottom. And so if we go inside here now, proper, meter thick concrete wall right here. Like if we go here, this is a meter thick right there. Well, actually, probably 2 meters thick, so really thick. And then you have a walkway coming down, and then you have cavities leading to these awesome arrow loops. And so this is what it's like there. Then you put a concrete slab right there, and this is pretty much a functional arrow loop in the Fallout 4 game that you can fire through and everything. It was very fiddly to position, and probably a bit too much work to put on all the towers, but that's how I did it, and it does the job. But the machiculations! Got ya! You thought I wasn't going to do it this video. Bad luck! So the machiculations are, like I said, too big, and the Merlons are very fiddly to put down. One of the design elements I'm quite pleased with about this unfinished castle is that I made the entry offset, which then creates a corridor of death to try and get into the castle, because this is the only entry into the castle. As you see, everything else is completely walled off. So you only have one choice but to enter the castle this way or try and breach the walls. And there's a big beastie gun turret right there, right in front of you. And then there's another one and another one. And you've got to run this gauntlet around this corner and then around another corner, which would be another actual, gate barrier here, before you can even get into the castle. So even though I didn't finish this castle, I started to make the right decisions. And one of the things that I have done here is that I realized I don't need to line up, because when I was building in concrete before, if you noticed on one of my previous, the military base for my Brotherhood of Steel character, you'll notice that I'm lining up the concrete blocks in a square pattern, and I realized, well, I actually don't need to do that. I also found more functionality in the Build Everywhere mod, which is just incredible, is that you can rotate things incrementally through the number pad. Just amazing. And so I started to realize, okay, and so I made this layout to be more realistic to what a castle is, because you don't conform the external walls to a square pattern. You make the external walls conform to the land that you're placing the castle on. That's one of the key principles of castle design. You to make the design to match the lay of the land. And so that's what I did here. And that was the first point where I realized, okay. And so this laid the foundation for me to make my first proper castle in every element and design. So I approached this castle design from a different point of view. One being to conform the external wall layout to the lay of the land. So not having to connect all the concrete, blocks at square angles. The next was feel free to adjust the elevation of the walls. And a recent mod that I had found enabled me to do that, which just gave good brick ramp blocks. So if you look here, see how there's a ramp part here? This is part of a mod that gives you a set of concrete blocks to build with, and the ramp connects seamlessly with the rectangular blocks as well. And the rectangular ones connect seamlessly with the square ones. So those blocks actually enabled me to be far more creative in the external layout. So if you even have a look here, you'll notice that the footprint is angled and it's just more natural and realistic. The next part is I didn't want to be limited by any of the options you had in the build menu, so I finally bought all the DLCs and all the expansions to get all the build sets and have all the options available to build this castle and settlement to the best level I could and make it a proper castle with all the defenses that I would want on them. So the first main design element that I really was able to do better than all my other castles, which is a pretty simple fix, was that there are proper crenellations and battlements on the walls, and I was simply using the concrete kind of rectangle block and just placing them on the edges. But to make it seem more structurally sound, I then edged them down a bit with the Build Everywhere mod, so they actually seem like they're connected to the wall a bit. And then with the same mod that gave me the ramp blocks, they also give you kind of walkway barrier bricks as well. And so I placed them on the wall, but then I edged them out to get, oh yes, this proper. And what's great about these machicolations, unlike my previous attempt on the castle I showed you just before, is that the enemy can't, well they can, but they firing back up at the people on the walls, they have to get right up close, so it's really difficult. And so the people on the walls can fire down on people, and if they get so close to the wall that it's difficult to fire down, look how small of a gap that is. It's harder to hit from down at the bottom of the wall, but for those people atop it, they can just place their gun right on the gap. And so I'll go up and I'll try and show you. They can just place their gun right down there and fire at anyone adjacent to the wall. After so many attempts, I was finally able to figure out a way to do it, and they're proper functional. In fact, you can shoot through those gaps. So very happy about that, and of course they are on the towers and the walls everywhere. The inner part of this settlement is built everywhere with the Sim Settlements mod. I love it, and what you'll notice as well, I've layered them. So the upper walkway has proper structural supports. This is also given by another mod. I'm not sure this mod is completely available yet, so it'll be hard to link. I'll try and link if available. But these structural supports, they don't do anything for the actual mechanics of the game. You can position things floating in the air, but I like to give things a realistic look. So I added these structural supports in, and also metal frames for the stairs going up, and then added extra sim settlement plots for people to build homes, and it just gives this really kind of cool, chaotic, piecemeal look that it really looks like this is, a settlement people have just thrown together out of the scraps that they have found. So now let's look at the actual castle portion of this settlement, and what you'll notice is this the other kind of elements that I was wanting to include. I really wanted to include the screen for the drive-through as part of the castle, because it's a brilliant wall, okay? And it actually makes a really big, solid wall that could be incorporated into a castle really well. The next thing you'll notice, is, if you're familiar with this game, is I'm building outside of the build area, and that's another mod to increase the build zone area, but it actually didn't increase it enough, and so with the Build Everywhere mod, if you press F5, that will stop you getting kicked out of the workshop menu when you go outside the border, and then if you build something inside the border and pick it up, because once you build something, you can then select it again and then replace it, you build stuff inside the boundary, pick it up, and then you can place it outside the boundary, and so everything past the drive-through screen is actually outside of the build area, and I had to place it inside the build area, so I was literally like placing it here, and then I could take it outside the build area, because the border is basically this road right here, and then I could pick it up and place it outside. And I had to do that with every single block and component on this side of the castle. But it was worth it, because what I wanted the main road to be forced to actually have to travel through the castle. And so with the main road leading up, you actually have to go through a gatehouse to continue along the road. So this makes this castle, it turns it into a proper checkpoint for anyone trying to travel along this part of the Commonwealth, which makes this area far safer to use, and the road safer, which is kind of, the whole point of building settlements is to drive back the raiders and stuff. And so for the travelers along this part of the Commonwealth, this castle is actually serving a proper strategic purpose now, which is functioning as a proper defensive checkpoint for those people traveling along the road. And so they reach here, you have barricades, you have merlons, crenellations, gun turrets, and a gatehouse. And you might be saying, well, where are the gates? Well, if we walk through the gatehouse here and have a look here, those are the gates. And it's got two. I just trapped my companion, I think that was Piper, in between the middle. And so when under attack, you just flick the switch and lower the gates. And then if anyone actually breaks through the first one, they have to break through the second one. And what do they have to deal with? Murder holes. That's right, baby. Proper murder holes in between the gatehouse. So that's the same for this gatehouse and the other one on the other end. And every exit to this part of the castle has, look how thick the walls are. Fun. See the thick wall? And then massive thick steel automated doors, blocking off each entry and exit to the castle. And then for those traders that walk through, coming through, down the road here, they come here, and so this is kind of the quartermaster and also the armory, which is actually one of the weapon shops in Sim Settlements, but it looks so good. That's perfect. It's got a grate so no one can steal the weapons, everything. It's got all the weapons inside, so that's the armory there. And then there is a supply shop for the traders to come trade their supplies here. And there's also a hospital for anyone injured. They can come and get treated by a doctor on the inside. You'll notice that the towers have a 4 square footprint because with, I think it's the Contraptions DLC, they actually give you elevators. So instead of staircases, proper elevators inside the towers. So if we were to go up, we just go into the elevator and we press which floor we want to go to. Then we come up here to the towers, which have proper barricades to fire down on any bad guys that are trying to attack. So with those elevators, that just meant I could actually make the towers smaller than what I was forced to fit, because I had to make the towers on my other castles 6 squares on the footprint to fit those internal staircases in, but with the elevators, no need to now, and so they can be smaller and more practical in design for the castle. Then I have the barracks here, built on with the Brotherhood of Steel work set from the thematic and practical mod. And so you go in here, we've got bunker beds and lockers for changing rooms, going all the way through. There's people defending up on the wall. And the upper towers here are built in with the walkway on top of the screen. And so you can take the elevator up, get out to the screen there, which is this beautiful lookout portion, and it serves as the internal division between the actual fortified castle part and then the walled off community right next to it. So if one of these areas are breached, you still have to deal with the next kind of division before you can take the second part. So it's a proper castle with an internal division, and of course the same elements of the gatehouse towards the community part, which is lined up with the road as well. And so if anyone walking along the road, they have to go through the gatehouse there. And so this is finally A proper fortified functional castle with all the bells and whistles, all the elements that you would want a real castle to have to be able to repel attackers and everything like that in Fallout 4. Such a great game, and it is enhanced so much with all these incredible mods. My hat is off to all these mod authors who have made them. Links in the description below to these great mods, and I'll just quickly try and mention some of the ones that have a bigger impact on being able to build these awesome castles. So of course the Build Everywhere mod is absolutely essential, but to have the Build Everywhere mod you need the Fallout 4 script extender for it to work. Then coming in very close to that awesome Build Everywhere mod is most definitely Sim Settlements, one of the greatest mods I have ever seen. And gosh, and there are so much more. I'll leave a link for the mods that give you the additional concrete building blocks, and some of the other choice mods that just enhance the game and make it so much awesome. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to list every, because I have so many mods on my game, like crazy. Have a look at my mod manager installer. These are all the mods I have running in my Fallout 4. Ridiculous. I'm a bit of a mod whore. I love it. They're just so cool. So there you go, these have been the castles that I have built in Fallout 4. The journey that I've been on, lessons I have learnt along the way to try and figure out how to work with the workshop functionality to make a proper, functional and fortified castle. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed, and I do hope to see you again. Until that time, farewell.